wanted to teach me everything he knew whenever he was free and at home. Saturdays were the days we would recite surahs in the Quran until we memorized them. We would practice writing in Arabic language repetitively to gain perfection in our penmanship as well. My dad took his faith very seriously, and he tried very much to instill that faith in us, his children, making sure we performed our salat, our prayers, 5 times a day. We fasted during the month of Ramadan, and we even dreamed of being able to perform the pilgrimage in Mecca together as a family one day. When my father reached his limit and when he could teach us in recitation and writing, we began to attend Islamic classes on the weekend. When I was 13, my brother's life was being threatened by gang members in our area. My father decided that my brother, my father, and I would all go back to Ghana and stay for a few years until that situation settled. My brother was in college, my other brother, my oldest brother, he was in college out of state, and it so happened to be an opportunity that my father anticipated for us to learn and indulge in our culture and pursue deeper studies in Islam. And I was all for it. I was excited and zealous as ever. My father enrolled me in a Christian school, this is in Ghana, believing that it would strengthen my faith in Islam. It actually did. Being one of maybe 5 Muslims in that entire school, I was proud of my religion and I wasn't afraid to say it. The students were very loving and friendly, and I enjoyed going to school there more than I did here in the United States. One day, however, all of the Muslim students were called into the teacher's office. We were questioned about our faith and put in a position to refute. I was surprised, but my zealous self was happy. I had learned enough to stand up for myself and my religion. In fact, I was the only student who spoke up. It was as if I was their advocate in this matter. I was able to boldly proclaim and defend Islam and silence my teachers. When it was over, I walked out of there thinking I will never become a Christian because I was so hurt by what they did. This encounter made me even more passionate for Islam. I had an option to attend one of the best academic schools in the greater Accra region in Ghana, but instead I chose to go to an Islamic high school that had just opened. It was a great place for me to be around mostly Muslim students and teachers. They even had a mosque where we could pray during the day. It was bliss to me. I attended this school with science as my major for 2 years. After high school, my aspiration was to take some time to study only Islam, whether it was in Ghana or the Middle East. My father was more than willing to pay for me to do this, and this dream of mine did not come true. With 1 year of high school left, we had to return to the US. I graduated high school confused about a direction to pursue, so I took a year off. Major events then happened also fast. That same year, my father was suddenly diagnosed with gastric cancer, and he died that following summer. I had just turned 19, just returned from a visit from Ghana with my dad for him to say goodbye to his family. We stepped into a painful situation of betrayal. His own brother broke into our house and stole everything valuable upon hearing that my father was dying. It was the first time I had seen my father cry. Instead of receiving love and hope, I heard family members there referring to him as dead man walking. I was nearly forced into marriage, and I faced truths that spiritual darkness was involved in our family crisis. The urge to just break down, to just cry, I couldn't. I had to be strong for my parents. My father's health rapidly declined on our visit. We returned to the US to hear his doctors give up on him, and I held his cold, clammy hand as he was painfully dying, yet still believing that he would live. The hospital offered life support, and we jumped at that thought of hope. I left the hospital with my mom to get her to try to sleep. However, not even an hour later did I receive the phone call from my brother that he was officially gone. The medical professionals could not give him the life support in time. Immediately sick to my stomach at hearing this, I finally broke down and violently cried until it physically hurt. Even at that point, silent tears fell constantly. The next day was his funeral and his burial. At his funeral, I was told I wasn't allowed to cry, and at his burial, I was only allowed to watch from a distance. All because I am a female, and this was supposedly an Islamic belief. I didn't have it in me to fight back. I just submitted. After his death, I would hear so many people say, he was such a good man, and that he's surely in heaven. And I began to think, is he really? I began to reflect over everything that happened. I began to question Islam. I decided I was going to read the Quran for myself in English this time and stop leaning on what I've been told. And so this is where it began. I was confronted by contradictions. I read that the Bible is a book of God, but it had been corrupted. Christians are God's people in some verses, and infidels in others. I questioned and I reflected on every detail I came across. I became interested in Christianity. I wanted to know who Jesus really was, yet I was scared to discover the truth. Scared to believe him to be who the Christians believe him to be. According to my faith in Islam, that belief would condemn me to hell. Jesus, the Son of God, it couldn't possibly be. It's disrespectful to even think that God would have relation with a woman that she would conceive. However, the Quran speaks of the Immaculate Conception. I began to dig deeper, ask more questions, even read about other faiths. Which is true if all believe their faith is really true? It's a question I would ask myself. I was so curious, I accepted an invitation to church. All of this my mother didn't know about. I mysteriously found a Bible in my house and began to read it from the book of Genesis. I was desperate. I would cry myself to sleep at night and worry of not knowing the truth, and in worry of not waking up the next morning, displeasing God and going to hell. At my breaking point, I told God, I am not going to eat until you speak to me. I began to fast on the third day, and on the third day I was reading the Quran. I stopped a moment and I said, I just want to know what will happen to me if I believe in Jesus as your son. Will I go to hell? And I heard a voice. It said Romans. I thought I was going crazy. I looked around and I heard the same voice repeat, Romans. I looked at the Bible next to me and I picked it up. I opened it to the table of contents. I saw Romans. My heart skipped a beat, and then I heard Romans 8. I opened up to Romans and saw that there was actually a chapter 8. I only read the first verse, the answer to my question. And quote, therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. My heart skipped a beat again. I closed the Bible, I put it aside. I couldn't bring myself to believe what happened, and I told nobody about my encounter, and I continued to search. Not too long after, I was invited to a women's retreat by the church that my best friend invited me to, and I decided to go. I had my second encounter there. I don't remember in the slightest what was being preached. All I remember is the altar call, and I felt the urge to go up. As I walked down the aisle, I began to sob, and I didn't know why. And when I got to the altar, I could no longer stand. I knelt down, continuing to sob. On my knees at the altar, I remember feeling as if I was being hugged. I opened my eyes through the tears, and I saw that no one was there. Through my tears and badly smeared makeup, I believed and I confessed it repeatedly. The next day, when prompted, I stood up and said the prayer of salvation. And my life has never been the same since. Feeling this unexplainable comfort in what I believe, in what I have to believe as the truth, with no exceptions. So, that was my encounter with Jesus Christ. And after that, I went through many things. Because when I finally had to tell my mother that I was a Christian, initially it went well, and then afterwards she exploded. She began to attack me physically without cause. She would blame it on other things. And eventually, I had to leave her. That was very hard for me. Before my dad passed away, he made me promise that I would never leave my mother. But I was put in a situation where I had to. My pastors at the time took me in, and he treated me like a daughter. They gave me a safe place. And it wasn't long after that, like I said, I went to Bible college for a year. And that was a wonderful experience. I got to learn about God and really understand why I believed what I believed, because I had a supernatural encounter, but now I had something solid where it was like, this is why I believe what I believe. It was confirmation in so many ways.